What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Empowered Athlete Podcast. It's your host, Natty Boss, and today we have an amazing guest, my friend, our past student from the Performance Blueprint, and fellow competitor, Miss Alicia Huang. And in this episode, we're going to be diving into talking a little bit more about her awakening, her self-discovery and healing journey. And you guys know that I love that aspect and love supporting athletes and kind of stepping into, kind of coming into themselves a little bit more. And her story is really inspiring. And a little bit about her, she is based out of DC. She's currently a white belt who trains at Big Brothers BJJ. And as I said, a former graduate of the Performance Blueprint back in 2020, which is crazy to think that we've known each other, been in each other's world for at least 2 years now, which is insane. And she's here today to really just share her story in hopes to inspire other women that no matter where you come from or what your background is, you have the power to flip the script and be the narrator of your own life. And so I'm really excited to bring her here. Welcome, Alicia. I can't wait to hear your story and for you to use your voice to share your story with the world.
Oh, thanks, Natty, for having me. So, like Natty's introduced me, my name's Alicia. I'm a white belt, and I've been training a little over 3 years. And I'm super, super grateful for having jiu-jitsu in my life. And it's got me to where I'm at today. For example, having this podcast, having this platform to share my thoughts and experiences. And I hope to inspire other people.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So with that said, let's dive into kind of starting with your story, your background of what got you into jiu-jitsu. Like, what were the steps and the circumstances and situations leading up to the point where you found jiu-jitsu and decided to join? And anything else you want to share?
Yeah, of course. So I was trying to find a workout that I would like or enjoy back then. And back then I didn't have any muscle back then. So I was like, oh, I want to grow my glutes. I want to grow this and that, like just typical. Like I was looking at Instagram models and stuff like that. So it was already very unhealthy. But of course, I didn't have the tools to recognize that part back then. So I was focused on working out to look a certain way, not to feel a certain way. And that was terrible. And it went on for years. So anyway, I started going to the gym, like normal workouts. And then I joined a boxing gym and I eventually got bored of it, but didn't want to do MMA because I didn't want to get my face punched. And so I was introduced to jiu-jitsu and I tried it, and I was going for like the 5-6 a.m. classes. But again, at that point in time, I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. I was training back then to look cool. I was training jiu-jitsu because it sounded cool. And my heart wasn't in the right place then. Not till I met my current coach, Saida Durkee, who I love like so much. She's an amazing woman. She helped me like discover like a lot of things in my life. Like she's led me to so many great things and down so many paths. And one of the biggest things that she has helped me with is to understand and figure out my why. Why am I training so hard? Why am I still doing jiu-jitsu? So that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and she's the one that kind of hooked us up and got us together, which was really cool how jiu-jitsu really opens those doors and those opportunities. And like you said, those pathways to expose you to people that maybe you never would have crossed paths with, even though the time that we had met, we were relatively close as far as people I've worked with over the years. DC and Philly are pretty close together compared to some of the other places. But who knows, who's to say that if you didn't join jiu-jitsu that we would ever come into contact. So that's always the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu that I really love.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
So when I know that you have a lot of history, a lot of past leading up to before jiu-jitsu, in the way that you were raised and the experiences that you had, and looking back, this is very common for, a lot of women in this sport. They don't necessarily realize that their past really shows up on the mat until they get on the mat. And then they realize, oh, wow, this is really empowering and then also really uncomfortable because it's like forcing me to like address certain things that I don't necessarily want to address. So in your experience, how did your past conditioning or the traumas that you've experienced, big T or little T traumas, show up for you in jiu-jitsu when you started?
So trauma and jiu-jitsu, I feel like they're very related. And it's a scary thing because they're so different yet so alike. Like
Yeah.
everything connected, and there's no denying that, and there were times like at first when I joined like your program, I was like, oh, this is trauma, and I started doing my own research on what is trauma and how the brain works, and the subconscious, the conscious, like the things you address in the program. I did like my own research for the longest time, and I was like, oh my god, like this is a rabbit hole. I can't ever finish learning all these.
Yeah.
And also at the same time, like the trauma started coming up on the mats, like you said, in different ways. Like, for example, if somebody had shoulder pressure in my face or under my jaw and I can't breathe, and it is gonna bring back like memories. It is gonna put my body in fight or flight mode. And
Yeah.
I think key is to work through it a little bit at a time, kind of chipping away a little bit at a time. I used to just freak out and run off the mat and would just start crying. And
Yeah.
I realized that was not the right thing to do, because one, my coaches, they don't know if I'm okay. And second, my training partner would be like, oh my God, did I do something? And
Yeah.
that's not the so I realized it's okay to freak out, but I need to let people know I'm okay and like what I'm feeling in the moment. Like, hey, I need a moment, so people know I'm safe. So
Yeah.
that was realized. And shortly after, I began to like work through it. Like when certain feelings come up or certain memories come up, I'll be like, it's okay. I'm here right now. I'm
Yeah.
not in the moment. Like it can come up, but I will not let it consume me. And that's a very, very powerful thing to do. And every time I do that, it's like a little part of that dies. And like realizing I have the power to just work through that is, I can't describe it.
It's really empowering.
Because we don't have to live in that moment. We don't have to live in the past, okay, like the past, present, future, they're all happening at the same time, whatever. But the thing is, like, the body, it just remembers like everything, but we have the power to just be here, like now, like it's okay, like we're now. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of work, but it's so worth it.
What have been the biggest tools that you've utilized in those moments of those activations, of those triggers, of those memories that have supported you? I know, correct me if I'm wrong, was breath work one of the things that you started learning in this program, or did you start doing that before?
I learned it from you. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Was that one of the tools that you found that like you utilize, as well as any other tools that maybe Saida maybe taught you as well?
Yeah, like breath work, 100%. I started with that when I was in the program as a student. I started breath work, and then I learned about breathing, just breathing intentionally and consciously. It's a huge part.
I know. I remember that you were just kind of like so confused. Like you're just kind of like, what is happening? Where are all these emotions and things coming up and surfacing? And what does this mean? And this mean? And all I'm doing is breathing. And why is it so intense?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was too much all at once. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Do you feel that that was, although maybe intense and scary in those initial moments, do you feel like that was really a turning point, or a thing that opened the door to go down, like you said, that rabbit hole of healing and self-discovery and understanding that a little bit more?
100%, because I feel like the first step is awareness. And
Yeah.
once there's awareness, you, like, not you, but people in general, I can't really go back to not knowing it's there. Like I know it's there, and I can't just not face it, especially with, all the tools you've provided for us in the program, plus what my coaches have taught me and what I've learned from the mats. There's no denying it, and
Yeah.
if what I need to heal, it will be like going back down to day one of not knowing anything. And that,
Yeah.
so it's like having awareness and knowing that I have to work through all of those things. And yet there's such a fine line between compassion versus denial versus like being too lenient. Like those are things that I kind of had to learn along the way. Like I would have to pause and think like, am I being too hard on myself, or am I simply denying the fact that I need to heal? Those were very interesting thoughts, and they can't explain until, you know, until like someone would experience it themselves, because it's going to be so different for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So to take a step back a little bit in regard to the performance blueprint, because you touched on it a little bit, but you also touched on this idea of like when you first joined jiu-jitsu, how like your intention was a little different when you first started versus like what it might be now. So my question also is, what was the turning point in the motivation in 2020 to join the performance blueprint? And was your initial intention of why you joined the same as what you got out of it? Or was there a shift along the way? Because I know that you, again, this breath work brought up a lot for you that kind of shifted some things. So I'm curious to know that.
So when I first joined Performance Blueprint, I was under the impression that, oh, I'm gonna learn how to do things better. That was just really like, it was a generalization. I didn't know what I was going into, but I just knew in my gut I had to do it. I couldn't explain it. I had to do it. And you and I, we had a talk. I remember the interview and everything. And I was like, okay, like this feels right. And besides coach, like Saida really recommended me to do it. And at that point I trusted her enough, you know, like we didn't know each other for the longest time back then. It was maybe a few months into it. She introduced me to the program. I was like, okay, like I trust her to a certain extent, so let's do this. And obviously along the way, like I trusted her like a lot more. It's been like 2.5 years more than that now. So anyway, so I went into it not really knowing what to expect. And it's just been amazing, the amount of growth I've had after leaving the program. And till date, there's been so much that I simply don't know how to put into words. You know, at first I'm like, oh, okay, let me just do this, or let me eat this. And I was doing it to like still look a certain way. It still wasn't within. I just wanted to look good. And I didn't understand that once I feel good, then I'll look good. You know, like the confidence comes from within.
Yes.
Like confidence doesn't work like, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna have a 6-pack and I'm gonna feel confident. No, it's like I need to feel confident and then I'll get there. And those really emphasized in the program. At the point of time, I still didn't really know how to step into my power. And the last like 2 years, I finally understood how, and I own it. And I'm like, okay. So at first I went in the program, I was like, oh, let me just go in this and see what happens. And I remember midway through the program, I was thinking to myself, oh shit, this is huge and this is heavy. Like, what the fuck am I in? Like, I was like, this is so late. I can't back out now. I gotta keep this. It was insane. The experience I had was insane. So that was, I would say, my first awakening. Knowing I can program my brain, knowing I can be calm, knowing I don't always have to be in fight or flight mode, and knowing I don't have to operate out of my subconscious. That was the first step. So obviously leading up till date, there's been many huge changes. And what I got out of the program the last 2 years is that it's okay to feel powerful. It's okay to step into my power, and I deserve the best. And I can do it. You know, just like unlearning the bad habits and unlearning the conditioning a long time. And I'm still working on that. And I'm using the tools that you've taught us to, and I don't take, but
what's that?
I say, I don't know how long it's going to take to unlearn everything.
Yeah.
So,
The thing is, we might not unlearn everything, but you know, that could get us into a trap sometimes of feeling almost powerless if we feel like we constantly have work to do and we're constantly working on something, but yet there's still so much more to go. We have to appreciate and celebrate the moments where we recognize and we can heal from aspects of our past and integrate parts of us. And then also just like enjoy life as a human being, you know, because like we are spiritual beings in a human body, but at the end of the day, we are also living a human experience. So we have to also just allow for like life to happen in the sense of just being human and not always just focus on constantly healing, because you can ironically be burnt out from healing because it's a lot. So like you said, I loved how you mentioned chipping away at it slowly, which is really important. And, I know we had a lot of conversations around that where it would come up, and I'd say, just kind of take your time with it. You do not have to address this thing right now. If it's really overwhelming, if there's a lot of emotions, if it feels unregulating, it just means that your body's not in a place where you feel safe yet to explore this. And so you have full permission to take a step back, take a breath. And whenever the time comes, the time will come and you'll know because you'll feel it. And then that will be the right divine timing for you to address it. We don't have to constantly force, which can be sometimes the thing that happens when we have that awareness. As soon as we have awareness, we're like, oh my goodness, like, let's just fix it all in a day. And like, it does not happen that way.
It's overwhelming.
Yes.
Overwhelming.
And I'm curious, you kind of touched on it, but like in your own definition, for those who are very new to the idea of like what awakening even is, in your own words, what does it look like for you? How would you describe awakening for those who may have been in a place where they're unawake or just completely running in unconscious patterns to this place of like consciousness and awareness? So how would you describe it for those who may have no idea?
You just read my mind, Natty. So, it's a very interesting experience because once not you, but like when I thought I was awake back then, I was like, oh my God, I'm learning about how the brain works and all that. I was like, yes, I got this. But that was just beginner level and I didn't know I was in for it. And I've had 3 huge awakenings till date. And to me, the definition of awakening so far is knowing like we're having a human experience, but we're infinite souls. We exist in so many different dimensions at the same time, cannot be described right now. But like you said, just knowing we're having a human experience, like that itself is crazy and a lot to really understand.
Yeah.
And to me, like the biggest part so far and the most important thing that everything is connected.
Yeah.
And laws of the universe and reading more into that, like really made me realize why I am the way I am today.
Yeah.
And why I had the experiences. And also it's led me to really follow my heart.
Yeah.
With that, I know that I will eventually find my purpose. And I may be living my purpose and I don't know it just yet. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
And now I really have no idea. All I know is I need to trust my gut feeling.
Yes.
Because my gut is clean so far. Like we've learned in Performance Blueprint, like gut is so important. And yeah, I lost my train of thought.
No worries. But no, just speaking to that idea of, of expanding on your idea and definition of awakening, of this idea of like that we are infinite souls. And this can be, a new conversation, a new topic for people who have no idea, because it really is a higher level of consciousness. The more attached we are to our ego identity and our human experience, the smaller our consciousness is, where we just feel like it's just us. And we can also feel isolated and alone in the world because of that. So the more that we expand our consciousness, which a lot of the times the healing and energetic work is one of the ways in which we can really liberate that dense energy in the system, start understanding that we have different levels to our consciousness and that we can rewire, like you said, our consciousness, our beliefs, and all of that kind of thing. And as we expand our consciousness, there is new perspectives that are involved, and we feel less attached to the one identity that we had, and we start to open up to the idea that there is more of an interconnectedness, which then kind of negates that situation of feeling alone and isolated, because you just feel and you can have that felt sense that you are actually a part of something bigger. and that you are connected to something bigger. Thus, there is a reason why you are here. There is a purpose why you are here that is connected to something bigger. But if we were never taught that, it's really hard to there's a lot of resistance often to kind of have this weird, sometimes people call it like hippie type mentality, because it's not really logical. It's very unknown. It's very just tapping into more of like the spiritual aspect of things. And it's beautiful when you can have that shift, because it really helps to liberate a lot of the suffering that we experience as humans. And so my question to you off of this is, what are some of the biggest differences in the way that we could describe to people like the way life looks when we're in like smaller consciousness versus like our bigger consciousness with new awareness and new just a deeper knowing and a bigger knowing. So like, what are some of the biggest differences in the way that you navigate life and jujitsu with this new awareness than maybe before the program started? So from this new level of consciousness and understanding and almost identity shifting to from maybe even if you wanted to go back and just say like 5 or 10 years ago.
Well, that's a deep question. And I would say the biggest difference is, like, the first thing I thought of was letting go, like letting go of, I realized I could let go of my ego, which is a difficult thing and it's ongoing work. I realized of the multiple identities I thought I had identified with or that people had put on me, labels, identities, stuff like that. I realized I could let go of all of that and just be in the moment, which is easier said than done. So ever since being on this journey of realizing I can do things consciously, I've realized that I have to be in the moment of what I'm doing in order to fully experience it.
Yes. Oh, got chills.
Yeah, and that is a very difficult thing to do. It could be something as simple as I'm sitting down here talking to you, or I'm sitting down here drinking my coffee and just letting my mind be where I'm at. That is an art form.
Yeah.
And it's even more difficult in jujitsu because, okay, like if I'm drilling like a close guard scissor sweep, I have to know I'm doing that and not let my mind wander.
Yeah.
The ego and the old narratives would come back and say stuff like, you're not something, you're not good enough, or you can't do this, you were never athletic, you were this, those thoughts start coming in. And it's really difficult to be like, okay, I'm here right now, I'm strong, I'm powerful, I'm fit, I'm athletic, I can do the shit, I'm not the old years ago. And every time I keep saying that, so that to me is the biggest like transformation, knowing I have the power to tell my ego and my old narratives like, no, you know what, back off, like you're done. Don't need to keep coming back into my life. And that's the thing, is like, that is a battle that's for me to fight. My coaches can't help me with that. They've given me lots of tools. They're very supportive. All my teammates are really supportive. Like, people can give me the tools and stuff to help me with that, but I have to be the one doing it.
Yeah.
And it's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And although you are still really early on in your jiu-jitsu journey, in having these shifts maybe as of recently, how do you feel that whether it's in competition or whether it's in just training in the dojo, have you noticed any shifts in that level of confidence with, where you're at relatively, being a white belt and things like that? But do you still feel that anything has shifted in how you approach it or view it, just simply by having the tools to navigate these things?
Yes. And the biggest difference I've noticed was the way I actually approach my teammates, the way I talk to them, the energy I give out. So that was the first thing I've noticed that really shifted. It's like, just knowing my energy can have an impact on a lot of people when I walk into a room. I didn't expect that. I didn't have no idea. And now I'm like, okay, I need to be mindful of how I put out my energy. It has to be good, and then it'll come back good.
Yeah.
And always the way it works. So that was the first thing. And also, I was a lot more supportive with my teammates and my friends, knowing like, okay, I was where they were before. I was a new white belt, like to all the white belt, like the new white belt women, like it is difficult. And I've been there, and I'm still a white belt. So
Yeah.
I just that I can inspire other women. And yeah, again, I lost my train of thought. That's how it is.
It's perfect. So I love that. I love that shift that you've experienced in how you navigate life and jujitsu. And when you are not aware, when you don't have those tools, it's so easy to let the mind kind of just take over, and it really affects our performance. But I love how you recognize, the energy that you have really impacts other people, and that reciprocal type of energy of what you put out, you get back. And using your support system, which I feel like is a big part of your journey, is the support system that you had, which is amazing that you were really open to receiving support from myself in the program and Saida and your other teammates, and really allowing yourself to lean on them to support you in that is so important. I think many athletes need to realize that a lot of people struggle with seeking support, due to old narratives and feeling like it might signify weakness. But the reality is, we cannot experience this life alone. We really cannot reach our potential alone. We when the opportunity and the people and the circumstances present themselves to be there to support us, really allowing ourselves to be supported is so important for us to really grow and evolve. And I just wanted to speak to that for a moment, because you've always been really good at seeking that support. And I mean, we'll leave it to you here for a second. Do you have any thoughts or insights for people and other women and athletes who may have had past experiences like that, who would like a support system? I know that's a big thing, but like, any advice that you would have, being somebody that has a good support system?
I think it's really important to surround, like for me, it's important for me to surround myself with the right people. And the definition of right, it looks different for everybody. So whether you're looking for like a gym that's more focused on competitions, or a gym that feels more like a family, that I would say is entirely up to you. And for me, I really was just looking for a gym that feels like a family and also competitive. So it worked out. And realizing that competing, I also realized that competing brings out the best in me in so many ways. So that biggest part, that was a bonus. I like years ago, if like you would have told me like, oh yeah, Alicia, you're gonna compete in Vegas, you're going to Jiu-Jitsu Con, I'll be like, no, you're crazy. I'm so not doing that.
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I would have never, ever, ever had the guts to do this if not for the guidance of my current coaches and my teammates.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be with the right people in the right surroundings.
Yeah.
If ever people feel like, oh, this gym doesn't feel right, like I hope that they would trust their gut and know that there are better things out there, better people out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah.
That's really good advice, and going back to that idea of just like following your gut, because your gut's never going to steer you wrong, and it's always leading you to what your next step is. And kind of shifting gears a little bit, because I do want to touch on this, with one of you've shifted from, and we touched on this earlier about kind of how initially your first entry into jujitsu was really focused on the physical appearance and just focused on how you look, and not necessarily how you feel. And there gets to be space for both. We can also want to look a certain way and also feel a certain way too. It's just the energy behind the intention behind the actions that we're taking that really matter, and the sustainability of it. But recently, I wouldn't say recently, it's been over the course of a few months, but you've been able to experience some sustainable weight loss and lots of body composition changes. And I know that was one of your original goals in the program, but with all of these things that we're uncovering, it just, we recognize that it's not as simple sometimes as just eating broccoli, right? Like there's so many more layers to sustainable weight loss. And some of it dives into a little bit of the emotional baggage that we have, along with the empowerment of knowing what to eat and all those other facets. There's like this internal healing that needs to happen, and like also just like the physical information that we also need to know. And the combination of both are what really lead to that sustainable weight loss. But you've had weight loss as a goal for a very long time, body composition changes goal for a very long time. And how much do you feel, I'd love for you to just kind of expand on that experience for you of making that shift from kind of yo-yoing to like really being able to sustain it, as well as how much of a role do you feel that healing from your past has had in your weight loss journey?
That's crazy. It's like you just read my mind. So for the longest time after I graduated, I was still on the yo-yo. I wouldn't say diet. I was on the yo-yo like habit. I was trying to relive my old habits. I'm willing to let go of my old self. At the same time, I was trying to grow into the new self. And this is just two contradictions. It doesn't work that way. I had to let one. And there were times where I would let go of being the new me and just be the old me with my bad habits, which till date, it still makes me very uncomfortable to talk about. And you and I both know like what the stuff I was trying to unlearn and all that.
Yeah.
Longest time, it wasn't consistent. And I was again doing it for the wrong reasons. I was eating broccoli or working out to look a certain way. And that's not sustainable because it didn't come from my heart.
Yeah.
For a period of time, I did look good, like good, but
Yeah.
I didn't look good because I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it to look good, to have people tell me I look good. And
Yeah.
that's time, and I never told you that. But that was also a period of time where I was really, really posting like progress pics and all that, and just looking for gratification. And no, I didn't need that until right now. I know like that's the last thing I need. All I need is to just live in my truth, and everything else will come along.
Yeah.
And so I just thought about it. So the last year really was when I really focused on myself as an athlete, as a woman, knowing like I have the power to do what is good for me in this lifetime as a human being. And that's a huge statement. It's like, what does it even mean? I'm still trying. I think we're doing pretty good because it's been a year. I really, really start focusing on what makes me feel good and what doesn't make me feel good. And what makes me feel good is eating my food, having enough to eat, and how I feel when I eat. It's very different when I'm enjoying something, whatever it is, when I'm enjoying food or dessert and I'm happy when I'm eating it versus feeling unhappy when I'm eating a whole plate of balanced meal. Although very interesting how feelings can really affect eating, whether what you may be eating, which is a very strange thing to really understand. And I'm still trying to understand that. So these days I'm able to eat dessert or ice cream or whatever and not feel guilty for the most part. Not yet, but for the most part. And not using food as a punishment or as a prize. Because no, it's I need to eat because I need to eat, period. It's simple. Not like I'm running 5 miles to eat a scoop of ice cream. No, if I'm gonna eat ice cream. And I really hope that people would really understand that. Like, we should not use food as punishment or as a prize, like you've mentioned in the program. It's just so detrimental mentally.
Yeah.
And it has so many effects on the body, and it's just so bad. And I'm still unlearning that. But like for last year, I really worked on living in my truth and discovering my purpose or bigger purpose. Like, it's ever changing and we're evolving souls. So that's
Yeah.
Um, but I really, really focused on myself the last year and told myself, like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to reach my goals, to be a better version of me every single day, a little bit at a time, whatever that little bit may be. And I've done that consistently for, I would say, I want to say all of last year consistently. I would say the last few months. And like I showed you like a picture of like what I've done last few months, and it's just been amazing. It's just doing things from my heart and
Yeah.
knowing for myself. It was crazy to see that body comp. I was like, oh my god, do I even post this? Why do I need to post this? I'm like, I don't need to.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's such a different energy behind posting something because you want to maybe use that as a vehicle for inspiration for others versus needing validation from others. There's a
Yep.
completely different energy behind that. And if I can be honest with you, of course, even though you never verbalized kind of where you were in that process, I'm very aware of patterns and things that people engage in and just like whatever. And I just knew that the thing is, for those who even join the performance blueprint, it is just still a snippet of your life. When it comes to healing and really unraveling patterns and really stepping into yourself, like I wish that it could all be so crystal clear by the end of 8, 12 weeks. But it really is just a good starting point. Like you said, it's the point of the starting point of an awareness, of an awakening. But there's more work that has to be done to really, really step into that. And some people can handle it and want to take that step, and other people can't, or they're just not ready for it. Wherever people are at, it's important to me as a coach and mentor to accept that, but to constantly just be the guide and to lead the way in my own example, to let them know that it's continually possible no matter where they're at. And, there was definitely times where you had reached out to me and we had talked just about like where you were at and what you were experiencing. And I remember the running, waking up every day and running. And, I knew in my head, like what that was, but you were working through your own way, the way you needed to. And I trusted that. So it was just beautiful to watch the natural unfolding of what got you where you were here, because, I didn't want to push any type of agenda or, I just could recognize that where you are in your journey, you are committed enough that you will get there. But you just need to go through all of the things that you are going to go through. And if I interject that, I'm disrupting your timeline. I'm disrupting what needs to unfold in the experiences that you need to have for you to have those continued awakenings and for your time to unfold, which ended up being, around 2 years later, where you start to really, really come in more into yourself. So just to know that, 2 years later, this is where you're at is so incredibly rewarding and just like heartwarming and exciting for me, because I'm never attached to when it happens. It's just that it happens is makes me feel like my work is done. To just open the door for women and athletes and people to just have that experience. Like you said, like you cannot change anything in your life if you don't have awareness. So to be just that vessel that opens the door to awareness is really all I can do, because like you said, the rest is up to you to show up for. And the rest is up to you to experience the highs and the lows and put yourself through and have successes, have failures, but get back up. I can't do any of that for you. I can only do it in my own life and hope that in my example, it gives people the hope to do it for themselves. So I think you're a beautiful testament to that. And I love that you've always updated me on all of your situations and the low moments and the high moments. And I'm like here for it all. And for you to kind of share your story with other people and use that as an opportunity to inspire people is says a lot about you and wanting to just be an empowered woman that empowers other women, which I think is beautiful. And I'd love for you to kind of share if you have any final thoughts on what advice you have for any other female athletes who have maybe a similar background of either big T, little t traumas, or just general conditioning, feeling small in themselves, not really feeling clear on their life or whatever it is, but who are looking to step into this new version of themselves, this higher consciousness, this awakening, but are afraid to potentially address the skeletons in their closet. What advice do you have as far, you kind of mentioned some little tidbits, things like digesting it slowly or whatever. But like, do you have any last advice for people who want to embark in this, feel enticed by it, but then are maybe just like, there's a little fear around addressing things that they actively have worked to not address?
Still sounds like me today, but
Yeah, it's all of us, always.
so I would say, like, to me, I feel like fear is always going to be there to a certain extent. I feel that if one is at a point where they don't fear anything, then they've reached like the end of evolution, which I don't even think that's possible. I feel
Exactly.
fear is always going to be there, and the key is to work through it, to step into it, right? And I feel that with you and your program and what you teach and what you believe in, the moment I stepped into to Performance Blueprint as your student, you gave me the tools to navigate through life with fear, So I feel that to every like athlete, especially like women like training jiu-jitsu, I feel that fear is always going to be there, and you just need to look for somebody who can lead you through that. And in my case, it was you and my current coaches and my teammates. So I really, really hope that women would really join your program. And I'm not saying this because like you're paying me or you're sponsoring me. It's none of that. I'm just doing a podcast with you as your graduate. And I really hope that women would just join your program because it's amazing. It's life-changing. Literally, like, I don't know where I would be if I hadn't joined your program. I wouldn't even know how to eat my food. Like, and that's not.
Yeah.
So I really, really hope that women would just join. Like, even if they're scared or they're fearful, they have doubts, it's okay. Like, we all have those feelings, and just trust it, just go with it, and not live in that moment forever. We don't have to live in fear forever.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize and, like you said, acknowledge the fear and work with the fear. Fear is absolutely going to be present 100% of the time. But when we resist the fear, that's when we create more of that suffering versus when we work with our fear, acknowledge it, recognize that fear really only ever exists to protect us. And then when we get to reassure ourselves in that moment that I'm actually safe in this moment. And if I was to take an empowered action from this place of presence, being here now, I'm not in a threatening situation. I'm making a conscious choice towards a vision of me that I want to step into. And this is just the bridge that's required to get there. And just like trusting that, going back to what you said earlier, of just trusting your gut. Like, it's as simple and as hard as that. Because like you said, the mind is going to like inflood all of these different things to tell you why not to do it, all the fear, all the doubts. But if you really just allowed yourself to make it be simple, your gut only speaks in yes or no. So like, if we just let ourselves just speak in yes or no, we would have so much less suffering because we would not be living in gray areas all the time and trying to figure out all these different solutions and excuses and all of this. It's just like, it's a yes or no. And you can feel that difference in your body. And it really just is a matter of trusting that. And it means so much to me that you wanted to do this podcast to share your story, share your voice, and just share how the Performance Blueprint has impacted you, because that is my goal. Essentially, my goal is to be able to have students go through this program and have the experiences that you had. That is what lights me up, gets me up every morning. And it's beautiful because I know not only is it good for you in your life, but when you are stepping into your power and living your authentic self, you also have a ripple effect that affects other people. And that is really the vision that I have for the world, that I have tattooed on my arm. Be the change you wish to see in the world, right? It all starts with me in leading. And then it's creating an environment for other women to learn how to lead themselves. And then once they learn how to lead themselves, they're creating just a new energetic configuration, a new frequency, a new version of them that's then going to impact the next person. I'm not going to impact anybody in DC. You will. Right. And then together we get to do that. And that's how we have a positive influence in the world, you know? So that's why I wake up every morning, to know that that's potential that I have. And when students want to come in to share their story and share how it's impacted them, it's so rewarding. And I definitely receive that and take that in. So I just appreciate you so much. And it was so amazing to also meet you at Master Worlds. Finally, I always have weird experiences with like meeting students, because like we talk all the time. And in my head, I'm like, I never met you. This is crazy. How did I never meet you yet? It's been like 2 years, but I feel like, we talk all the time. So it was such a beautiful experience to meet you in the flesh. And finally, what I would love to do is really just kind of end on like a lighthearted note with the training that you do up until this point, maybe just right now in your life. What is your favorite technique or takedown right now in the moment?
As for takedown, I do have a favorite one. Not that I'm very good at it, so we're gonna leave that out.
No, what is it? What is it?
So my takedown is a low single. I think that's the name.
I love those. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. And that's my takedown. That's my one takedown. Technique.
Submission.
Yeah, I would say like I do love a close guard scissor sweep. That's my favorite, like ever since I started, and I've been very committed to drilling that. And for pass, it would be the Toriano pass. However, I need to work on solidifying my pass, because there was a mistake I made for my last comp and it cost me that match.
What happened in the comp?
So prior
you were able to secure the pass?
Yeah, so like I've been working on Toriano pass for as long as forever. And I remember this my pass that I love. So I was drilling Toriano pass for the comp, but I forgot to drill what comes after Toriano pass. So in my match, I literally did the Toriano pass and my opponent just regarded, and I did it again and she regarded again and again. I'm like, what the fuck was I doing? I didn't pass and then solidify a position. So that's that. We're working on now. And submission, I would say a Kimura, like from Mount. It's classic.
Nice, amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us this Monday morning, as it'll be released, with us sharing your story. And I hope that there's lots of golden nuggets and, just some inspiration that you took away from this episode with Alicia. Again, I will post in the show notes her Instagram. Feel free to follow along with her journey, and that'll be where you can access that. If you have any questions about the performance blueprint, the program, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to Alicia in regard to just like her experience. I'm sure she'd be open to sharing, even more expounding on what she had talked about here, but she's super personable. So I don't think you'll bite. So just feel free to reach out to her. Again, if there's anything that you took away from this episode that you'd love to share on social media, you can tag Alicia as well as Body by Boss. We'd love to reshare it. And other than that, we will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you later. Bye for now.
Bye.